A very warm welcome to you all. World Mental Health Day was recently celebrated on the 10th of October, and the theme chosen this year was Making Mental Health and Well-being for All a Global Priority. It is no doubt that in the hustle bustle of life, where everyone is busy in climbing the ladder of success, the need to care for our mind, our brain, has become of utmost importance. And tonight, during this episode of One on One, our guest and our mental health coach, Nabiilah Fakirah, will talk to us about the ways on coping with loneliness. Nabiilah, thank you so much for joining us in the studio of the NBC.
Thank you, Koyal, for inviting me. Thank you, everyone.
Nabiilah, recently, the World Mental Health Day was celebrated on the 10th of October. As a mental health coach, talk to us about the relevancy of that day.
Actually, for me, people in the field, I believe that talking about Mental Health Day and having a day specifically designed where we can have talks, where we can have it on the news, to talk about the importance of seeking help, the different how to identify a mental health difficulty, how to if you know someone getting through it, talk about it. I believe it's really important and very relevant to just break the stigma attached to that topic.
Exactly. Do you think that by having that day, it is a way to break that stigma? Do you feel that the stigma is gradually decreasing in our society?
As compared to before, I would say yes, because now people are more aware about mental health, the different symptoms, and now people have started treating mental health similar as physical health. I think we are on that journey, even if we are not there yet, but we are still on that journey, and everyone in the field, I believe that we are doing our part to just bring awareness, to just make people realize the importance of talking about such important issue.
Definitely. And as a mental health coach, what are the ways you believe are important or that can help to make mental health and well-being a priority for all?
Um, I would say that it starts with knowing. I guess I've been saying that in this emission along. It starts with knowing what are the symptoms, having awareness is for us all our first priority. And from there on, we can start by giving treatment to people. But if we are not aware that there is a problem, we can't give treatment.
And tonight we'll focus on loneliness, which is actually a normal part of our life. And many of us don't realize, but we do experience it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it gives away a sense of self-worth at times.
Mm-hmm. Actually, loneliness is not something that only people with mental health difficulty will face. It's something very common. At times to times, you will feel lonely. You will feel a little bit lonely, feel a bit low. This is part of the life cycle that we have. But sometimes loneliness gets a little bit too intense, and it's not like a normal loneliness. Today we feel a little bit tired, so we gotta take a break and we want to stay alone, and then we feel a little bit low. It's not like that. There are different types of loneliness, and sometimes loneliness becomes chronic. This is where the issue starts happening.
Loneliness is actually a feeling, right? It's not about having the number of friends or the type of family we have. In fact, we can feel lonely even in a crowd.
Actually, yes. This is where I want to make the difference between loneliness and a social isolation. Loneliness is not something to do with people around you or not. You can feel lonely even if you are in a crowd, even if you are within your family. Actually, research has proved that most people who are lonely are people who have family. They are surrounded by people. So loneliness has nothing to do with being surrounded by people or not. As compared to social isolation, then that's different. Because social isolation means that you are alone in your room, in your home, and this is where you kind of start. You don't want. Actually, it's very important to understand that a person who is isolating him or herself might not necessarily feel unhappy, because that's their choice. That's what they want to do. They are perfectly fine with that life. But in comparison, loneliness, when a person is surrounded by people yet they feel lonely, then that's a problem. Now let me explain to you what's loneliness. Loneliness is a subjective feeling that one doesn't understand you, one doesn't care for you, and one doesn't want you to integrate in the group. So then what happens? You feel distant, you feel disconnected with people, and you feel alone with yourself. So this is the definition. It's very important to understand that it's a subjective feeling. What's a subjective feeling? I might be feeling this way, my friend is not. But that's very different from social isolation. Social isolation is a choice. As compared to loneliness, it's not a choice.
But we do have some people that choose to linger on that feeling of loneliness. Why do you think that is that so?
I would say because, first of all, it's very important to understand that loneliness is not something desirable.
Yeah.
It's not like isolation. I choose because I'm an introvert, I choose to stay at home. No. Loneliness is very painful. And it's like a dragon that keeps on increasing, that keeps on gain intensity as time passes. Why? Because the more you start having the feeling that no one understands you, no one wants to integrate you, no one cares for you, it affects your self-worth, it affects your self-esteem, it affects your self-identity. Now, your whole system, your whole being starts getting fractured. This is the way I call it. Like the identity is a little bit fractured. And you feel a void inside you. When you feel a void inside you, the next moment you'll try to close yourself up. And when you try to close yourself up, then going out, you won't do it. Because you're scared to be vulnerable. You don't allow yourself to be vulnerable. You don't allow yourself to connect with real people. So this is why people stay in their loneliness.
Loneliness remains one of the key indicators of poor mental health though, right? Because when we are connected to people, we do feel valued.
Yeah.
What are the causes of loneliness according to you?
I believe it starts with, it's not that I believe, it's the research says that it starts with a poor self-awareness. Like if you look at people nowadays, they are like very into the digital world. They are very into connecting with a lot of people, yet not talking to a lot. When I say they connect with a lot but not talk to a lot of people, what do I mean here is you might have 100, 1,000 of friends, followers, likes, comments. These are not real communication. Like I take my phone and I'm on the screen and I'm video calling a person, it's not same as I meet a person.
Definitely.
Right? So we as human individuals, we need to feel connected. We need to feel in physical contact with people, in psychological contact with people. Like I'm talking to you, it's different if I was doing that on a screen. Because now I can see you, it's real. As human being, this is what we want. This is how we can get the best out of interactions. But with the fast-going technology, we have the tendency to rely on digital world. This is where the problem starts happening. Because then you're doing a video call and you can add a filter. You can just hide a little bit. You can just put the background different. But is that the real you? It affects your self-esteem then. Because you're not projecting the real you. So you're afraid now to project the real you. You don't want to go out because people will see your real face. So it affects your self-worth, self-identity, self-esteem. So this is why. This is the cause of loneliness. I would say modernization.
Yeah. It also all comes down to emotional intelligence, right? To be aware
Absolutely.
of your own feelings.
Yes, this is what we've been talking about in the previous episode. Like self-awareness, emotional intelligence has a lot to do with ourselves. Like you feel good in your skin, automatically you'll go out, you'll feel confident to go out to talk to people. But if you feel bad in your own skin, you will die, but you will never go out. Because for you, in your mind, I can't be vulnerable. People will judge me. People will look at me in a bizarre way. People will do that. People will do this. So these second thoughts, they stop us from being vulnerable. So we choose not to talk. We choose to stay within our small bubble. And then the loneliness crops in.
It is not therefore about the absence of other people in your life, but rather your inner absence. You're not aware
Absolutely.
of your own self. Like you've said, hidden with filters, technology. You're not aware of who you are, right?
Absolutely. It's a lack of self-awareness, to know oneself, to actually have self-love,
Self-acceptance also.
self-acceptance. Absolutely. Like you don't feel good in your own skin. It's something to do within yourself. Usually with loneliness, the next word that is associated is void. Is like an emptiness inside you, and that can't be filled by other people. You can only feel it yourself.
It's also important to point out that sometimes we may not realize, but a toxic friendship or a toxic relationship may also cause that feeling of loneliness, right?
Absolutely. It's not about having a lot of friends, it's about having good friends. Like I used to, once I read about something, it says that when a person is listening to you compassionately, it is like you're giving that person the space to empty their heart. And if you talk about someone emptying his or her heart to me, it means that whatever it is, they're going to say it, and I'm going to listen to it without judging. So between you and me, can you do that with a lot of people? Can you have this trust to just say, I'm going to empty my heart with the next person I'm going to see?
It's very difficult, right?
Very difficult.
Very difficult.
And you will have a barrier saying, I don't want to be vulnerable because that person will judge me.
Yeah.
So for all people who are listening today, if you want to be a good support to your friend, to your family member, listen to them compassionately. Give them the space to empty their heart, and don't hold any judgment towards them. You would see that the quality of relationship will change, and that person will feel more understood, which will decrease the level of loneliness, the intensity of loneliness, actually.
Nabiilah, you are a mental health coach, but you're also a human. I mean, I'm sure our audience are curious to know about how you dealt with loneliness at some point in your life. Maybe it could help them, you know?
Yeah, that's a very tricky, interesting question. I would say how I dealt with my loneliness was I went and meet people. I seek collaboration with my colleagues. I've talked to this is what I did, because after the post-COVID situation, what happened is all I was doing, I was talking to a lot of people because I was practicing back then, still practicing, and the next moment, you could have been talking to 10 people, but I've been listening to 10 people who has listened to me. So then I've reached out to my colleague, I've collaborate with people. I would say, look, this is what I do. We can collaborate together. We can work together, and maybe we can also talk about. You have real conversation with people. Obviously, you have to be choosy. You can't just go and talk about everything to strangers, but you actually build bonds. This is how I've dealt with my loneliness, and but before going to that step, it's important for you to know who you are. So there was a background work that I did on myself, an internal work, like who Nabiilah is, what's her preference, what is she looking in life, what kind of person she is she empathetic, everything. So I had a list. I knew myself. I knew what I'm carrying. This is how I say. And the moment I step into an office, I talk to people like I'm confident. Like I know they will understand, even if they don't understand me to 100%, they will to a certain extent. So when there was no second doubt, when there were no limiting belief, this is where you kind of let yourself bond with people. And that's a beautiful journey afterwards.
Definitely. Tell us about the different types of loneliness, though, that exist.
So first, there's emotional loneliness. Like as mentioned, there's a void inside you. You feel like people are not understanding you, causing a lot of troubling emotions, and then the next moment you don't want to be vulnerable and you shut down. Okay, so that's emotional loneliness, right? The second one is loneliness when there's no people around you. For example, not no people around you, let me put that a little bit different. Now it's very common. You finish school, you go abroad for studies, and you go for work abroad. But that's not your culture there. You don't belong there. Then what happens is you start trying to fit in, but you start seeing the difference, because it's very difficult, right? It's not where you live, you don't have family member, you're trying to fit in. Even though you are connecting with your colleagues, it doesn't mean that you feel a sense of belonging. This is where issues starts happening. Oh my God, you start saying like, there's something that's missing in my life. There's something that's important to me that I used to recharge myself with, and I don't get that. So then the loneliness starts happening. Okay? So emotional on one side and social on the other side, I think, are the main type of loneliness that we experience a lot.
But Nabiilah, does loneliness cause poor mental health, or poor mental health cause loneliness?
It's a bi-directional effect, I would say, because if you have a void inside you, if you have low self-esteem, if you have low self-confidence, you will have the tendency to overthink. The moment you are like, oh my God, so who I am as a person, I don't like my own self, I don't feel comfortable with my skin, what will happen? You will have the tendency to overthink. Oh, he's been looking at me, maybe he's having judgment on me. You overthink. And when you start overthinking, you start having negative thoughts. When you start having negative thoughts, what happens? You start not sleeping well. When you don't sleep well, you start having issues, which can lead to a mental health issue. Now the vice versa also exists. People have mental health conditions because of genetics, because of something that happened in their life. Now there's a decrease in neurotransmitters, there's a decrease in these neurochemicals, predisposing the person to negativity, making them lose interest, making them feel lonely, hopeless, etc., and they isolate themselves. Now, this is why this can trigger loneliness. So it's a bi-directional, both has an effect on each one.
It's two-way traffic, right?
Two-way traffic,
yes. Do you think, though, older people are more at risk of loneliness? I mean, they retire at a certain age, and they don't feel like at some point in life, they don't feel really their place in the society. What's your view on that?
Yes, it's true. If you go and talk to an elderly, they will tell you, oh, I don't want to continue living like that. And if you keep on asking them the question, they will tell you, life is not the same now.
Yeah, they have no purpose.
Exactly. It's not that entirely that they don't have any purpose. It's just they feel that, the world they were living before and the world we are right now, it's very different. They find it hard to actually find their people understanding them. If I give you an example, you have a grandmother talking to a new his granddaughter or grandson, and he would be saying, before we would go to the sugarcane field and we do that and this and that, and the next moment we say, oh Nani, this is not the what we do now. Now you can just download it on your phone. So it's hard for them to understand, and it's hard to be understood. They feel that people don't understand them, people don't care for them, and this is where they shut down. They are in their small little box, they shut down, and this is where loneliness happens. This is why we say old people, they are more predisposed to loneliness. Why? Because they feel that people don't understand them.
And at what point does loneliness become chronic, actually?
Actually, when loneliness starts becoming a comfort zone. When I say comfort zone, we always say like, oh, comfort zone should be something that's pleasant.
Yeah.
No, comfort zone is not something that's pleasant. It's something that you are used to. I would say someone is not used to be vulnerable. Someone is closing himself up or herself up. Someone is not happy with his own skin, not talking to people. That person starts staying in his room, okay, and not trying to understand and not trying to help people understand him or her. So then that becomes like a small circle inside it. A small box, you stay inside it. That's your comfort zone. You're so used to that, you feel so comfortable in that pain that you don't want to go and try something new. You don't want to go and focus on yourself to grow because there's fear. Oh, what if people don't accept me? What if people judge me? So you stay in that little comfort zone. This is where it becomes chronic, because the more you stay in your comfort zone, it's more difficult to get out. My message on the national TV: don't stay in your comfort zone. Growth is painful. Development is painful. To be to that next version, if you want to be the best of your best version, you have to get out of your comfort zone. Do something that's difficult. Do something that's
Challenging.
Do something that is there's a little bit risk associated to it. I'm not saying like go jump on the cliff, no, but try something new. You never know. Be optimistic. You never know. Something very good can happen from it. If Nabiilah didn't go out and start collaborating and start talking, where would I have been today?
Definitely, yeah, that's so true. That's so important as well. Something that you've said, that it becomes a sort of comfort zone. And in that sense, it can lead to the fear of abandonment in relationship, right?
Yes. Why? Because you have poor self-esteem, poor self-worth. You will always have the second thought, I need to say yes, otherwise that person will leave me. So what will happen if all you're saying, Koyal, is yes? What will happen if all you're saying is yes? I don't like you wear this, yes. I don't like you to do this, yes. And even something you don't like, you say yes to. Will you be happy? You will feel like, okay, I'm always understanding people and people are not understanding me. So it is, maybe there's a problem with me. Maybe I'm not good enough. Then that becomes a fear. Oh, what if I project my true self? People will leave me. It's like a circle. It's like a vicious circle.
We are actually drawing towards the end of this episode, but before that, Nabiilah, tell us about the ways on how someone can cope with loneliness.
I would say the same old stuff that I always say is like, know yourself first. Mental health is not something like, it's mental health and it's something very complicated. No. Start by knowing yourself, have a good routine, practice a sport, love yourself like who you are. No matter how you look, no matter your level of education, no matter what you're good at, you have a certain talent, you have a certain good in you, you have a certain positivity. Embrace this. Love yourself. Like when you see yourself in the mirror, say, I love myself. I love my body. I love who I am. I know what are my strengths. I know what's my weaknesses. I know how to talk. I know even if I do mistakes sometimes, it's okay. I'm just human. Be comfortable in your skin and have this mindset like Nabiilah always did. I might go talk to a person and that person doesn't understand me to 100%. But even to a 20% that person can understand. Yeah. So keep going with that and you will see you will feel more comfortable to go to talk to one person, 2%, 3%. And you might never know how you can connect to a wonderful being and that can change your life.
Thank you, Nabiilah. It was such a delight to have you on the set tonight and learn more about the ways to cope with loneliness and embrace ourselves.
Thank you, Koyal, for inviting me again, and thank you for asking me to talk about such a nice topic where it started with loneliness and it ended up with how you can have meaningful connection with people.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Dear viewers, we have now come to the end of this episode. Thank you for your time. We hope to catch you next week at the same time, same channel. Have a great evening.